Now back on Dalal Street, the market snapped a three-day losing streak with the Nifty ending just shy of around the 10,700 odd mark. The Sensex jumped 350 points odd, led by gains, in fact, of close to around 1% odd. The mid-caps, however, they slumped in trade. They ended flattish with a bit of a positive bias by the time we wound up. But the banks, they outperformed with the index rallying close to around 400 points odd. Remember, both the move on the Nifty as well as on the Nifty Bank was led by a sharp up move that we got on Kotak Mahindra Bank. But that's about Friday. Over the weekend, plenty happened. The US markets were under some pressure. Crude oil prices jumped up. And the markets will be negotiating with the exit polls as well today. Anisha, tell us all the cues that are stacked up for us and how you're reading it.
Oh, well, yes, Nigel, as you pointed out, all ingredients are in place for a manic Monday. It looks like we'll see a reversal of all those gains that you talked about on Friday. Well, there are three or four major factors that are really playing out to that. First up, as you mentioned, the exit polls favored the Congress. There is no really, big victory coming in for BJP, and that's the reason we might see a bit of a decline in the stock markets today. Separately, the US markets were weak. We had seen the single biggest weekly decline since March, and that should weigh on sentiments. And crude as well rose about 2 to 3% after the OPEC and the allies decided to cut production. Separately, if you look at Asia this morning, that one is trading quite a bit weak. Yes, Nikkei is off the day's low because at one point it was down about 2.25%. Right now it is sitting with a cut of almost 1.9%. But still, rest of the Asia is in the red. Kospi is down about 1%. Hang Seng is open with a cut of around 300 points. And what is adding to the fears in Asia is the fact that the trade growth in China has really slowed. So the November exports came in at 5.4%, which is much below the expectation of 10%, and even the imports in China just by a paltry 3%, which is the slowest growth that they have seen since October 2016. Now, what is this doing? This is just adding to the fuel of those trade tensions impacting the global growth concerns. And remember, that was the reason that US was under pressure whole of last week. In fact, we saw 4% declines on the key indices there. Talking about the big domestic queue then in detail now, exit polls as we were talking about, there's no clear victory for BJP. And remember, these 5 states were really important because this was considered to be a semi-final ahead of the general elections in 2019. And given there is no clear majority coming in for BJP, there might be more nervousness and worries regarding continuation of the BJP or the NDA alliance at the center. And that's the reason perhaps we'll see a bit of nervousness percolate into the stock markets as well. Now, as far as the state of Rajasthan is concerned, most of the exit polls are giving Congress the edge. As far as Telangana is concerned as well, no major expansion of BJP in that particular state because TRS may retain the power there. And it is a close contest as far as the exit poll predictions go for Chhattisgarh, Mizoram and MP, which is Madhya Pradesh. And in fact, most of the exit polls give Congress the edge. So not really good news coming in for the BJP or the markets in terms of the continuation of the governments. Moving on to the global cues then, US, as I mentioned, saw the worst week for the indices since March. Dow tumbled 550 points, and that one erased all the gains for the year 2018. S&P is down over 2%. That too has turned negative for the year. And look at the Nasdaq. That one was down about 3%. We saw sharp cuts in the stocks like Apple as well because there were some, negative brokerage comments there. And the reason for the US decline whole of last week was first, yes, there are growth concerns, and that have got precipitated by the US jobs data that we got. So the US economy added 155,000 jobs, as we earlier mentioned, versus the expectation of 198,000. And the trade tensions have seemed to have escalated after the Huawei CFO's arrest, and there has been no major development on that front in terms to arrest those tensions. As well as if you look at the wage growth, that also missed the estimates. So all these reasons actually leading to the nervousness in US markets. In fact, Dow futures as well are suggesting a cut of around 200 points. So it doesn't look like this is the end of the nervousness that we're seeing in the US markets. Separately, oil has moved back to the $62 per barrel mark after OPEC and the allies decided to cut production by 1.2 million barrels per day. Coming on to the cues for the week, because yes, it's going to be an important week. Tomorrow we have the all-important outcome of the state elections of 5 states. date. The winter session of Parliament will start from tomorrow. In terms of the global cues, there's a Brexit vote tomorrow, so all eyes will be on what happens in UK and Europe. Separately, we have the CPI, IIP and WPI data coming this week. And also, the all-important RBI board meet is there on December 14th because of a lot of nervousness around the RBI decisions and the board meet as well. Important levels to watch out for Nifty. Well, it looks clearly that we'll start around that 10,600 mark on the Nifty, but 10,567 is the 50-day moving average, so we'll keep an eye out on that number.
And that's right, Anisha. And we're saying that it's a semi-final for the finals in terms of the political event. It's because 15% of the Lok Sabha seats come in from these states. So that's the reason why, in fact, we're saying that. And not just that, I think in these key states of Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, as well as Chhattisgarh, I think there were 65 seats in terms of the Lok Sabha. And out of that, the last time around, that's in 2014, the BJP won 62 out of the 65. Oh. So that's why, in fact, BJP putting up a strong showing is very, very important from a market's perspective, because definitely the market is pricing in the BJP to come back in 2019 or not. And if it doesn't come back, then it's not very, very good news. But besides all the cues, Anisha, I'm also keeping an eye on the match. India versus Australia. It seemed that the boys were doing quite well. We are down 6 wickets odd, 180 runs on the board. I mean, that's the Australians. So we're trying to knock off the remaining 4 wickets. But it seems the Australians are putting in a bit of a fight. 140 runs is what they require. They've got 60 overs to get it. India is looking at getting those 4 wickets, so let's hope they get it. But for the time being, please tell us the stocks and news. Well,
yes, let's hope that India gets those 4 wickets. And let's talk about then the stocks in action, because we will have to come back to work and talk about these stories as well. So first up on Allahabad Bank, the rating of 1,000 crore Basel compliant bond has been revised to AA negative versus AA. Brigade Enterprises, they have announced the launch of new projects in Bangalore. IFCI, they reported their numbers a bit too late perhaps, because the loss has come in at 55 crores, but that compares to a loss of around 500 crores. So that 55 crore number doesn't look too bad on that account. Arrow Green Tech, a good news coming in for the company because they have received an FDA approval, that is US FDA approval, for the manufacture of mouth dissolving strips. They're expecting the production to start by 2020. So keep an eye out on that stock. Talking about, the other companies that will be in focus, Escorts, for example, has entered into a joint venture, and this is for mobile cranes, so keep an eye out on that. Vodafone Idea, a tad bit of negative news as Brickworks has revised the NCD rating a notch down to AA negative from AA earlier. Ashoka Buildcon, they have received a letter of award, so that should be taken positively. Mangalam Drugs has also received a WHO pre-qualification approval for one of their units, so that's a positive news for Mangalam Drugs. United Breweries, there's some change perhaps at the top helm as the CFO Stephen Bosch has resigned and he's looking to move on with a new assignment with Heineken. And lastly, keep an eye out on the Adani Group stocks. It's been an ongoing tussle, but now MERC has decided to appoint a committee to check why the bill amounts are showing such unusual hikes in Mumbai. So maybe a good news for users, perhaps they might see some credits in the coming month, but not such great news for the company.
Okay, all right, Anisha. Thanks so much for giving us all the market cues as well as all the stocks that we should be focusing on. But now we'll slip into a short break. Up next, all important cue. The exit polls predict the Congress win in Rajasthan. They're divided on Madhya Pradesh as well as Chhattisgarh.